Good morning, Dan and Amy. We've been talking all morning about fake news. Now we turn our sights to Chicago, and that means we're
Talking about
fake accounting.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, crunching the numbers, huh?
This is fascinating. This story from Bloomberg. A tiny dancer is in a bad Moody's about Chicago's credit rating.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
It's a Moody.
Thank you very much.
Is that you? Is that your work?
That's my handiwork. Thank you very much.
Trademark Dan Proft.
He is complaining about Moody's giving Chicago's debt a junk rating, which it so richly deserves, saying that Moody's has exaggerated the risks to bondholders and fails to take into account the steps he's taken to right the ship financially of the city of Chicago. And, of course, this comes in advance of the $1.2 billion bond sale next week. So when you're junk rated to the extent that you can get people to buy it, you pay a premium for being a financial house of cards, as Chicago and the state of Illinois have been doing. So that's why he's upset. Emmanuel wrote a letter to Moody's CEO, said, "It's become increasingly clear that Moody's rating methodology and agenda are far from objective and independent. It doesn't reflect the city's credit, does their current rating, or ability to pay debt service when due." Is that right? I'll tell you what, the credit rating agencies are not beyond reproach. Of course, they were asleep at the switch prior to the housing bubble bursting. However, take the tiny dancer posture of math as a matter of opinion at your own peril. And to help us explore this, we're now joined by Sheila Weinberg. She's the founder and CEO of Truth in Accounting. I am a board member of Truth in Accounting in the interest of full disclosure. And Truth in Accounting has issued a new report on the debt per capita of the United States' 20 most populous cities. Golly gee, I wonder where Chicago finds itself. Sheila, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. Talk about fake news. We've been trying to highlight for years that the, state and local governments have been claiming, fake news of balanced budgets. But for example, while the mayor was riding the ship, he's been, quote, balancing the budget according to him, but running according to his own financial statements, running a $1 billion deficit.
Well, so when the mayor sends that missive to Moody's CEO saying your junk rating of our debt is unfair because it doesn't accurately reflect our ability to finance debt, is he right about that?
Well, it's kind of like me saying, my credit is bad, because I can pay, less than the minimum on my credit card balance. But I have a huge balance, but, my credit rating isn't fair.
Well, your report from Truth in Accounting finds that Chicago has $7.6 billion of assets available to pay bills totaling $45.8 billion. So bills to assets of about 7-1. That doesn't sound like ability to pay.
No, again, and, they've been not paying, we call their unfunded pension liability. They're actually their unfunded pension credit card. And, their actuaries, their accountants have told them for years what the minimum payment has been on that card. And they've chose to, quote, balance their budget by not paying even that minimum payment. So, again, you can imagine if your credit card, if you didn't pay even the minimum payment, how out of hand that would get. And, again, Moody's, as you mentioned, we actually think at Truth in Accounting has, been, neglecting and not really, highlighting this situation to its fullest previously. They've almost been nice to them in the past, and now the truth is finally coming out.
So how much amount would each Chicago taxpayer have to pay for the city to become debt-free?
They'd have to pay $44,000 just to cover their credit card, their, in essence, credit card debt.
All right, I'm gonna lead the way. Dan, I'm gonna provide leadership. I'm taking out.
Can you pay for me?
Pay to the order of City of Chicago, $44,000. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sheila.
State of Illinois, $45,000.
Oh, wait,
right.
hold on.
I got
so $44,000 for the city. How much for the state?
Right.
$45,000.
Yeah, and then you have to do CPS for about
All
20,000,
right, 20,000 CPS. Okay,
CPS.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, no
And what else
problem.
you got?
and only about $3,000 or $4,000 for Cook County.
I'm running
Oh,
out of
that's not bad.
checks. Okay.
Well, you're going to foot me, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
no,
I've got
I'll
Eli and
look.
Peyton to worry about.
You know my philosophy. You can't put a price on good government. And so, I mean, these seem to be very reasonable retail prices for the kind of service that we get in Chicago and Illinois and Cook County and CPS, the kind of quality of education. Interesting in your report, again, the ranking of the top 20 most populous U.S. cities by taxpayer burden. So Chicago, not 20th. That's New York, $61,000 per capita.
Ooh.
Chicago's 19th. Now, doing a little comparison, Chicago to Houston, because Houston is about the same size and it's demographically very similar. Houston has 11.7 per capita, so 1/4 of the tax burden per capita in Houston as compared to Chicago. Is this a situation where all of these cities that range from Charlotte at the top at $3,300 surplus, wow,
Yeah, you love that town, Dave.
to New York at the bottom with the $61,000 per capita check to be cut? Is this, they're all doing the same things, the same, practicing the same bad practices, but just to varying degrees when we talk about unfunded pension liabilities and paying your mortgage with a credit card, kind of financial management like Chicago's been doing?
Well, we have looked at, actually looked at 50 cities, and we're looking at we're not looking at a per capita, we're looking at a per household.
Per household, excuse me. Yeah, per household.
And they're in our 50-state study, which we're just issuing. We have 7 cities that are actually ahead of the game. As you said, they run a surplus. So obviously, even though they have been in the past hiding their pension debt and hiding their retiree health care debt, they still have been, truly balancing their budget instead of, leaving the citizens sort of, in a lull that, hey, everything is fine because, the mayor just announced that we balanced our budget. We must be living within our means. But again, because they're not using, the correct numbers and don't use the numbers that and the accounting that is done for their audited financial statements, they come up with their own, political math to, quote, balance the budget. They've left the citizens, thinking everything is fine, and now we're in deep trouble and can't, sell our bonds because they're junk bond status.
So what is Charlotte doing that we're not doing here? I mean, to have a $3,300 surplus is pretty big.
Yeah, well, we mentioned, we just did a Truth in Accounting Award for the state of Utah, and I asked them that question. I'm like, well, what do you, because they're in surplus also. I said, what do you guys do differently than, say, the city of Chicago? And they're like, well, we're truthful, transparent, and when we spend money, we make sure we have the money available to spend that. Just something
That's
crazy
crazy.
like that.
That's insane. That is no way to run a state. That's just what about making caviar promises on tuna salad budgets? Here's the thing. I'm looking at the state level, and over the past 30 years, it's very interesting. State revenues have increased 231%. This is from the Illinois Policy Institute. State revenues 231%. Accrued pension benefits have increased 966%. So by a factor of 4. This is why no matter how much you tax and borrow and spend, you can't keep up. And I wonder if the preponderance, if not majority, of that per household debt of $44,000 in Chicago relates to pension and health care benefits for public sector workers.
Well, 38. The money needed to pay bills is $38 billion, and pensions is $34 billion of that. So most of it is related to the pensions. Again, just where they've told the employees they have these promises, the employees have earned these benefits every year, and they just have not been putting enough money away to fund those, because if they put money into the pensions, they can't use that for other government services or benefits, or in the past they would have had to raise taxes, and voters might not have liked that. So to make it impossible for the electorate to hold them accountable, the city just hasn't been telling the citizens the truth. They've been lulling them into a false sense of security. We've balanced the budget. Life is fine.
She is Sheila Weinberg, founder and CEO of Truth in Accounting, truthinaccounting.org. Also, this report on the 20 most populous cities, the debt per household. You can get the city-by-city breakout at statedatalab.org, both Chicago's and then all the other cities that you would want to consider moving to. Yes. Sheila Weinberg, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dan and Amy.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.